everyone. Again, I'm Danielle Nierenberg, president of Food Tank. I'd like to ask everyone to come forward, sit down. We have really great speakers the next few hours, so please, please come forward and take a seat. I'm going to just stand here until you do and scold you until it happens. Everyone come forward, take a seat. Thank you so much. And a reminder to use the hashtag Future Food South by Southwest to ask questions and to interact with all of us. It's a really exciting day. We're so thrilled that you all could be here in person and back at South by. So I now get to introduce somebody who I consider a friend and a mentor and somebody I've really learned a lot from, and that's Jacob Pechenik. He is the co-founder, and I'm sure some of you already know him because of his connections to Austin, but he's the co-founder of Let Us Grow. Jacob, again, has been such a good friend to Food Tank. He's also an award-winning a film producer and a social entrepreneur and a tech entrepreneur. He kind of does it all. So I'm so glad you could be here today, Jacob.
Thank you, Danny. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's fun, right? We're back.
Very fun. Yeah.
Right. So tell me, so for the audience who doesn't know these wonderful Let Us Grow sort of installations, describe what it is.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'd start with the backstory a little bit. I think that could be helpful. My whole food journey started about 7 years ago. It was when I learned I was going to be a dad.
Right.
And I just wanted us to eat healthy food, organic food, no chemicals, and I just saw how expensive that was and inaccessible. And at the time, I thought that maybe it was organic farming needed more investment, needed an overhaul to compete with the conventional products.
Right.
And that led me down a rabbit hole, and I ended up starting a farm with two partners here, and that was in Austin, called Agua Dulce. And I learned all about being a farmer, and it's really tough.
Sure.
But the thing that really stood out was not that it was so difficult to grow an organic piece of produce, but that it was so hard to get this beautiful organic head of lettuce that we grew from the farm to the grocery store, to the people, in the same shape as the shape it was that when we grew it. And I learned that the average, piece of produce was about 10 days old before anyone eats it.
Right.
Depending on what you include in the average, it either travels 1,500 to 2,000 miles. So it's simply not the same product that, that the customer's eating, that the farmer grew. And I've learned since then that depending on the variety, 30% of the nutrients are lost within 3 days of picking. Spinach loses 50% in 1 day. So it's a real disservice to the people eating the food, and then 40 to 50% is going bad on the way. So it's a disservice to the environment because you have all this environmental resource going into it. So I realized that as a small farm in Austin, that we would really never be successful unless we changed the way that we distributed the food. And that's where the concept of Let Us Grow and the farm project came.
Sure.
And the idea was, well, if we just never harvest or never kill the plant and we send it living, then we can eliminate that 50% of waste. So we would essentially have the cost of fresh food. And that's where we started, and that's where, we came up with the concept. And I've got a little, baby plant here. So but the idea is that let's convert our farms into nurseries where we just grow baby plants. And by doing that, we can put farms in the middle of every city because you hardly need any real estate to grow this. And then you only need to send this 5, 10, 15, 20 miles to the person who's going to end up eating it. And then we design these farm stands, which are on either side of me, where you just put this in, they do the rest of the work, and the plant grows. And then when you're ready to eat it, you pull it, and it tastes amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant concept. It's also beautiful. It's easy. Can we talk about how easy it is for people to do this?
It's super easy, because if it wasn't easy, it wouldn't work.
Right.
Because in the end, we're dealing with consumers. And so it takes me about 7 minutes to set it up. But we say it's about half an hour to set up. And then you need about 5 to 10 minutes a week. We have an app that reminds you to add water. It tells you exactly how much nutrients to add, because we know what you're growing. And then we tell you when things are ready to harvest and give you recipes. So it's very easy. We also have a really great customer care group. So at any time you have any questions, you can send pictures of your plants in, and we'll tell you what's going on. And then we have, I think, about 20,000 members in our community group that all help each other. And it's a really beautiful group. So many people have come and told me that that's like their favorite thing, is just watching all the people in the Facebook group helping each other out.
That's so great. That community building is something you wouldn't expect. And so the last time we met in person, unfortunately, was 3 years ago here at South by, and you were telling me about this and how great it was. And then, we wrote some articles on foodtank.com about it. We had you on the podcast. But I want to know what the last 2 years of the pandemic have been like for you, because you told me sort of when we were chatting last night that VCs weren't interested in this until really the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. When I've been an entrepreneur before, and all the other businesses I've had I've been lucky that they've been successful, and I thought, oh, this is a no-brainer.
Sure.
That I just I had a big vision for this, and I showed it to VCs, and most of them were men, didn't do the grocery shopping, and would say, what's wrong with going to Whole Foods? And about a month into the pandemic, I can't tell you how many emails I got. Do you still have one of those things? Do you have one here I can get? But I think the pandemic, I think it's like, we all have, I think, similar value systems, but it's easy to turn a blind eye to it. And it's just like, maybe you're not eating the healthiest, you're not working out enough, maybe you have some vices.
Sure.
And you just think, oh, well, I'll change that next year or later on, and then you have a heart attack, and then, you change your life, and then you have this, you're so much healthier after. And I think the pandemic was almost like that heart attack.
Yeah.
For a lot of things.
Absolutely.
And it just really brought us back to our value system. And that's like, what's first? It's that you're healthy, your family's healthy, and it's just these core things that you need: food and water, right? Your community. And it really made, I think, people, think about those things. And for me, I've been lucky in the timing of, launching this product, because we grew, tenfold 2 years ago. Last year's threefold, and then this year's probably we're going to double.
Wow.
So it's been growing very quickly, and I think it's just really accelerated and amplified, right, the need.
Yeah.
And the awareness of the need.
One of the things, I was so excited. It was one of the silver linings of the pandemic that people started growing their own food, whether on rooftop gardens or with Let Us Grow. And it seems like that's continuing. It seems like eaters still want to grow some of their own food. And this is such an easy way to do it. And that community building I want to get back to is so great, because you have that Facebook group. You have those people who are talking to one another, seeing it. And then I think paired with the community, like the experts who can diagnose a problem, if you send them a picture, that's all very sort of intentional and cool, and creates something that I'm sure you didn't think about when you first started Let Us Grow.
I did think about it a little bit, but it's hard to put that on a business plan,
sure.
Right? That it's the feelings of it,
yeah.
Right? But when I would say, when people think about it at first, they first say, well, I don't have a green thumb. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then they think, then they start to really think, like, am I going to get enough yield out of it, and things like that. But once they start growing with us, the number one thing to think about is the experience and the pride of
Yeah.
it. And I think it's just that we have growing in our DNA, and we have a connection to nature in our DNA, and we're just so far removed from it.
Sure.
And so when you actually start growing your own food, it's almost like getting a puppy that's already, or with us, that's already potty trained, you know. And it's like you get all the benefits, you just enjoy it, and that's just a profound thing. That's hard to quantify and to value, but I think it's above everything else. And so that's that meditative experience to taking care of the plants, and it's the optimism that comes with it, and then the hook into your own community, giving plants away, because these are all baby plants right now, but they yield so much, so I'm always giving away, but it feels so good to give fresh produce away and then being connected to this broader community. So.
Now, and you brought up something very interesting about the optimism, and I think that, growing your own food provided a lot of hope and a sort of meditation during the pandemic for folks, and it was also so great for kids, as you know.
Definitely. Well, my mission is that every single kid in this country has some exposure to growing food, whether it's through a raised bed or through our system, and that's why we donate one to a school for every 10 that we sell.
So great.
But seeing the kids with it is incredible. My kids, now they're 4.5 and 6. They just like pick which lettuces that they want, and they pull tomatoes off and eat it, and they won't eat a tomato like anywhere else unless they grew it. So
that's awesome.
It's a very cool experience.
That's awesome. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, we've been talking about the pandemic, but, what does resilience mean for you and a company like Let Us Grow?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but I think resilience, starts with like resilience in my home. And then it's the neighborhood, and then the community and the city. So I think there's some amount of like self-sufficiency. I think that it's, we try to say like you can grow about 20% of your own food at home, but then we got to think about where's that other 80% come from.
Right.
And I recently saw a stat that in Austin, only 2% of the food consumed is local.
Wow.
And that's why, during the pandemic or the worst days of it, you'd go to the grocery store and the shelves are empty.
Right.
And, I also am a partner in a local business called Farmhouse Delivery, and that's really focused on the other 80% that you're not growing at home.
Right.
And we work with 200 different farms and ranches in Texas. Roughly, most of them are within about 150 miles. And we had no supply shortages at all. Because it was all, it was local, and we weren't subject to a global supply chain that has really all of these other problems and issues, not just from a logistics standpoint, but then also just, you're not getting the healthiest stuff if it's 10 days old before you eat it. So I think resilience is rebuilding these local communities and relocalizing food and getting as much of it as close to is where you are.
Absolutely. It's always going to be hard to get things like coffee and bananas and chocolate, other necessities, but the more you can grow and the more that we're shortening supply chains, it seems like it's a good way to build resilience to other global shocks. This isn't the last thing we'll face, right? There'll either be another sort of pandemic, or the climate crisis will give us another sort of opportunity, and we should look at it as an opportunity to do our food system differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to ask, a little bit about the economics of this, and what is that like for consumers? What is that like for the company? You give away so much, so I'm wondering, how do the economics sort of balance out?
Yeah, well, let's look at this, seedling again. If you're, let's say, a broccoli farm, and you can grow broccoli, big stature stuff here, but if you're a broccoli farmer, you're not going to put little broccoli seeds in the ground. You're going to buy, 10,000. 100,000 of these baby broccolis from a nursery. Then you're going to plant them. Then you need equipment, right? You need to use diesel. You need to water. When you're doing large-scale production, you're going to use chemicals, right? So you're going to grow it for 8 weeks or so. Then you're going to harvest it, package it, put it on a truck that goes to a distribution center, to warehouse, to grocery, and then someone's going to come and buy it. If you're growing this way, it's going to go from the nursery directly to the consumer and bypass all of that other stuff. I'm not saying that farmers also should go away because they're so important, but I think growing, we still are consumers, and we're not going to, I don't think, grow more than 20% of our own food at home, and we're going to really value where the other 80% comes from. But for that 20%, we can be so much more efficient. We can use less than 1/100th of the real estate, use less than like 2 or 3% of the water, use zero chemicals, use no diesel, not require all this labor and all additional hands touching the product. So on paper, it's the absolute most efficient way that you can grow this range of product on every metric that you can think of. The crux of it is it requires the consumer to participate. And that's why we really focus on making a beautiful product that's so easy to use with all this support around it. And but for the economics, for the customer, right now, there is an upfront investment, and it takes about 8 months to recover that, and then after 8 months, you're saving money compared to the grocery store. And then it's my job to continue to make that upfront investment lower and lower and lower. So, we're continuing to innovate on materials, on design to change the shipping volumes, to get a lower cost. And ideally, I'd love to get to lobby for a tax credit or tax incentive for people who are growing their own food at home. We have it for solar panels. We have it for electric vehicles. We should have it for growing your own food at home because it does save so much on the carbon side, on the water side.
Hear, hear, write your legislators. I love that. One of the exactly. Let's give that a round of applause. It's great. One of the things that I like the most about it is that there's no packaging. One of the things that irritates me about getting, greens from the grocery store is all the packaging. So there's nothing here that, you don't have that clamshell that you have to figure out how to recycle.
That's true. We do have to use packaging when we send the seedlings, and on the packaging front, we're always trying to innovate. But everything we do is 100% recycled and 100% recyclable. And we're looking at more and more materials that we can use, but it's still a challenge out there. And
I mean, one of the other things that I think creates resilience for this business model is that you're getting your materials from the U.S. You don't have the supply chain issues that everyone else is having right now from getting materials from China or elsewhere.
That's true. We make these units in Pennsylvania and in Kansas. And we do get some of the material because we do use ocean-bound plastic, and so that largely comes from certain areas of Mexico and Haiti that lack waste infrastructure. So we will bring that in, and there have been, the cost of that material has actually gone up like threefold. But it's really important for us to use it. So.
And in terms of being able to scale what you do and get it into more people's homes, more eaters' homes across the country, maybe even across the world, what kind of infrastructure is best suited for that? What do you need?
I think it's infrastructure of the mind. We need to shift consumer mindsets. And again, I didn't start the business to help people grow food. It was really to eat food, right? As a more efficient way to deliver nutrition. So we also are just used to eating processed food or packaged food or drive-through food, just and it's hard to go back and to learn like the OG way of making your own food, right? And now you have wonderful, amazing ingredients that taste good, but we have so many people don't know what to do, like never heard of Swiss chard. What could they do with that? Or, how do you make certain things taste good for kids in 10 minutes? So that's a really big push for us, is really on the education side of things. But for us, the infrastructure is there. It's really just a mindset that we need to shift, and it's happening. Which is exciting.
Especially in places like Austin, where people really care about where their food comes from and are trying to make a change.
Yeah, I should have got the number before I came up here, but I think we've got 4,000 or 5,000 people growing with us in Austin.
That's so great. So they're everywhere. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah.
That's great. One of the things that we talked about earlier today was this idea of how we've outsourced our food. And you alluded to it just now, but I think that's a really interesting term. I'm wondering if you can dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are very disconnected from where our food comes from. And I think, if you go back, years before I was born, we were, there was a lot of time spent at home, or there was a lot of time growing, and then there was a lot of time, preparing meals. And I think at first, there was a lot of excitement about the convenience of, packaged foods, but I think it just went a little too far. And it's all companies who are making our food, and all companies, well, now there's public benefit companies, which we're one of, but almost all companies, their fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholders, and it's to make a profit. So the CFOs and CEOs are just thinking, how do we make more money? But when we're eating food, what do we care about? We care about health, right? We care about what's in it. We care about what it's doing to the environment.
How it tastes.
Yeah, and there's no bonus points these companies get for that. And then we also used to have this inheritance that our great-grandparents passed down to our grandparents, passed to our parents, and that's been cut off. That was like, what do you eat when you're not feeling well? And there was, just all this knowledge. And now we're searching for information to like refine that knowledge, and it can be overwhelming. And I think some people could just, throw up their hands and not do anything. And that's another, I think, benefit of growing your own food. It's just a tangible way to participate and to regain that knowledge and to re-empower. Because all you need to do is ask questions. And I think if you're growing your own lettuce without chemicals, you go to the grocery store, you say, how is that made? People will start to listen, because the right answer is never with a lot of chemicals. So if you ask the question, all of a sudden, in 5 years, all of the lettuce will be grown the right way. So my goal is just to empower people to get engaged and to ask those questions.
Absolutely.
Because consumers are powerful, and all these companies, there's still going to be CFOs and CEOs, but if the consumers want good lettuce and good produce, they're going to make that.
Absolutely, absolutely. We only have a few minutes left, and I think what folks are frustrated about is that they feel that this is so much bigger than them. And this is one way that they can sort of make a small difference, but it's a big difference in their own lives. So I'm just wondering what your advice is for people who are like, I really want to let us grow installation in my home, but I don't know, if it's right for me. I don't know if, I'll be able to take care of it. What would you tell them?
I'd say start before you're ready and just do it. Because even just starting this business, I didn't know I was ready, and I was, dabbling with it.
Sure.
And you just got to start. And it's so let us grow is so easy to do. You can grow with us for a whole season and still return the product, and we have fewer than 1% return. So it's going to work. You just go for it. And even if it's not with us, just start any garden.
Sure.
Or if that's a little bit much, just go to your local farmers market and support them and talk to the farmers and learn a little bit and just kind of start to get engaged. with the process.
I mean, it's that empowerment you talked about before. It's so self-empowering.
It is.
Yeah, no, it's such a great way to become what I like to call a citizen eater, and you've made that possible for so many people. So thank you for doing that, Jacob. Where can people find out more information about Let Us Grow?
You can go to letusgrow.com, and lettuce spelled like a head of lettuce.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So nice to chat with you. Thank you so much for being here and for providing these wonderful Let Us Grow installations.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause. Yes.